Okay, so here's just a few things you're going to want to keep in mind if you're going to play Int Xelor. Just a basic overview, a couple combos that'll help you out. So there's three things, well, two big things you're going to need to know about. You're going to need to know about how to generate telefrags and prismatic variation and how all that works for you. Firstly, if we just ignore those things, what you can do offensively is use Xelor's Fist, and you'll attack your target, and you'll jump over them symmetrically compared to where you were. So, but you can only use it once per target. So if it's linear, like I showed you earlier, you'll be linear. If you do something diagonal or even different, it'll be that way too. Just keep in mind symmetry is what's important there. You can also attack with, which one's this one? Hand. And that's just going to do some flat damage there. This is probably going to be your ranged option, it looks like. And then linear ranged option is Dark Ray. And that's also going to reduce some range. Steal some range. Nice. Okay, so the simpler Xelor mechanic to learn about is prismatic variation, and that's all with the dial here. And basically, when you cast different spells on through the dial, they're going to give you different effects. So, like Dark Ray is going to cast an AoE. Within that AoE, any allies, including yourself, will be healed instead of hurt. And see, I failed the self-sacrifice challenge because that's a healing spell for me. With that, you've also got, let's see, Xelor's Fist doesn't do that. Oh, you can also... So normally conservation is a single cell, but if you use prismatic variation, it becomes an AoE. And you see how we've got Xelor Sandglass is chance / water, so if you use it without prismatic variation, it's just going to do some water damage. In fact, one of the utilities you can use it for is moving targets around like that. However, if we decide to use it the way int characters would use it, I'm actually going to step away a little bit. Okay, and so I'll target the Sandglass with Xelor Sandglass, right? I'll target the dial with it. And so now it's an AoE, and it's going to flip targets symmetrical to the center of that AoE. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is your hand spell here. If you're playing int, to deal damage, you do not want to do symmetrical prismatic variation, because if we do prismatic variation with hand, we instead do agi damage, air damage. So that's not going to be as useful to you if you're mono int or int chow. Alright. The other mechanic you need to learn about as Xelor is telefrags. So, if you read here, conservation is a special spell that you're going to want to keep on you or your allies, because whenever you generate a telefrag, you're going to heal that target, whoever has this state on them. But basically what Telefrag will let you do... how do I want to do this? Alright, real quick, just to kind of set things up. I'm going to start by summoning a Kawat here. Yes.
Whoppers and high major here.
Thank you. Alright, and see, now I've got that Kawat over there. And so I'm going to swap places by attacking the pouch. And as I did that, I generated a Telefrag for me and the Kawat. For allies, what the Telefrag is going to do is it's going to give you an AP buff, you and your allies. For enemies, what a Telefrag does is it decreases their spell resistance by 5%. As far as your Xelor class kind of utility spells here, you've got Flight, which will be helpful for generating Telefrags, as you can just swap to your previous location. If we, as you saw, okay, I'm going to move over here. And then I'm going to flight back. So that can be a really kind of nifty thing to do. Say you advance quite far, you can bring yourself back with rewind, and then decide on your next turn, okay, I just want to go back to where I was, so I'll just flight back. Since I said rewind, I'll go ahead and put that. Now, I've casted rewind on myself. And this one is only on allies now, so you can't use it on enemies. But as you see, I moved all the way over here. Let's go ahead and even just go a little farther. Pass turn. And I go back to where I started at the start of the turn. One of the nifty ways you're going to have to get yourself far is teleportation. Say you need to go a bit further than hand would allow you. Oh, I used it wrong. 1 second. You can teleport symmetric to in relation to any target. Most often you'll be using your dial, but I mean, if you've got other allies, you've got summons, you've got enemies, you can teleport across anything, really. A nifty thing to keep in mind is if you generate a Telefrag after using teleport, your cooldown for teleportation resets, so you can use it again. Rollback is effectively flight, but it's going to be for everybody. And so because of that, it's very tricky to use. And so you see the pouch move back to its last position. But because both I move back to my last position, which would be where the Kawat is, here, and the Kawa also moved back to its last position. We just both swapped back to where we were right before I used rollback. And so that one's going to take a lot of practice. I don't really use it much myself. This one is going to be more for your rewind kind of thing before the way Xelor's used to use it, but it's not nearly as strong. So you cast Temporal Prison on something that you don't want to move. And what this will do is it will prevent it from moving one time. It'll just teleport it back to that position. So, say I just want to move it over. Well, because of the way that worked, it teleported over there, and then Temporal Prison teleported it back. There's definitely some shenanigans you can use this way to generate telefrags, but it's going to be stuff that not only moves the target, but also moves something to where that target is right now. It's not easy to do it because there's not very many spells that move more than one target at a time. Okay. Say you're feeling confident where you're at. You don't want to do any telefrags, so that it will shut off your conservation healing and your natural healing you get from generating telefrags, because you do generate a little bit of healing every time you do a telefrag on a target. But say you just want to deal some good damage, you can cast Mummification, and that's going to increase your power, it's going to increase your AP, but it's also going to apply gravity on you, so you can't teleport, you can't jump around anymore. But you can just do a stronger static combo. And it's probably better if you've already got the dial right up next to you, so you can be healing off of that. And it also reduces the damage you take a little bit too. And that buff will last for 2 turns. Now, if you want to use telefrags to their fullest, we've got Cephalagia here. And what you may have noticed earlier was normally a telefrag will do the buff or debuff for 2 turns. Cephalagia instead makes it a 1-turn buff, but it's stronger. So we'll move over here. We'll do Fist so I jump. And so it'll give allies, including yourself, 3 AP every time you generate a telefrag. And it will, instead of doing a 5% resistance decrease on enemies, it'll be a 10% resistance decrease. The really nice thing about that is you activate telefrags more often, which means your conservation's going to kick in and heal more often. And then aside from that, you've just got your standards and spells. You've got Lightning Strike, you've got Leak Pie. Don't even worry about Boomerang. I mean, Release is probably going to be pretty useful to you, because if you're just int, it's going to be hard for you to get out of lock. And that's actually probably the main reason a lot of people are going int and chance, so that you get that dodge with it. But if you incorporate enough dodge into your set, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue, I don't think. You're just going to have to maybe think about that when you do your trophies, or maybe when you go to mage some gear, just so that you've got enough dodge to get around non-locking enemies. Lastly, you've got Time Theft, which is a best element spell. And so that's just a decent enough attack. It's going to be weaker than your others in terms of damage per AP, I think. But if you see, it does a -1 duration of effects. So if they are in the telefrag state, we can... I'm just going to swap them with the chance spell again. Alright, so you see how he's got these debuffs? Oh, well, actually, he's not even in the telefrag yet. Let me put him back in the telefrag. But you see how he's got these various things. So if we didn't really like what he had on, we could pop with Time Theft, and it debuffs by 1. Now, the thing to keep in mind is you're also getting rid of the telefrag you just applied. So that minus 10% or minus 5% spell weakness you applied to him, that's gone. For just chance, since your generating telefrags on enemies is probably going to be more through the prismatic variation on the sandglass, you might be able to use that to reapply it if you wanted to. But since that doesn't apply the poison like it does for chance, there's not really much of a reason to remove a telefrag on an enemy just to reapply it again. The only real benefit would be to activate another conservation on an ally, but you might have better reasons to do that. Oh, lastly, one thing. While I did say you don't want to use prismatic variation through hand on an enemy, it's still not going to be a bad idea to do so through on an ally, because it will heal that target, and it will heal them more, and it allows you to... Prismatic variation goes through sight. So, like, here. I'm just going to... Let's put that there. As you can see, that'll still cast it past the wall. And so that's one of the nifty things about prismatic variation, too, is that, you know, other classes might have a tougher time or might hide behind walls as you're fighting them or something, but you've got ways to go around that. Yeah, and that's pretty much all the tips I have for Int. Chance is pretty much similar. It's just instead of the healing, you've got Shake does poisons. Every time you generate a telefrag with Sandglass, that does more poisons. When you use prismatic variation or target somebody that's got a telefrag with jet lag, it'll push them. I'll show you that one real quick. Oh yeah, and as you probably noticed, you know, you only get one dial out at a time. The real cool reason to go with Chance is you can do stuff like apply Shake in an AoE, and then use Pendulum to swap a whole lot of things around. Generate telefrags, poison, or get that poison trigger, stuff like that. That's the really cool thing. And so, you know, when I was playing Chance, that was one of the things I was always looking out for. Kind of similar to how Int only wants to use Xelor Sandglass under prismatic variation. Temporal Dust is only useful to Chance under prismatic variation. And basically, in that case, it's the only way Chance gets decent range. Because, I mean, if you haven't noticed, these Chance spells are short range. You're going to be up in the fight being Chance. Except for prismatic variation there. Agility. Agility's got Frostbite. Is going to be how they trigger telefrags. By returning targets to their last position, kind of similar to Flight, and you deal damage as you do it. You've got Prismatic Variation Hand, will do some air damage far and through line of sight. You've got Slowdown, will reduce AP normally, and then under Prismatic Variation, it reduces MP. And then the only reason you're not seeing the AP lost in the textbook is because pouching balls don't have any, I guess. Similarly, Clock steals MP normally. So if they're in the telefrag state. So here, let's do that real quick. So if they're in the telefrag, Clock will try to steal their AP, and it'll also remove it. Right, that's what I cast? Yeah. Okay. But then through Prismatic Variation, that one will steal the AP. And then Agi has Dust normally, which you're going to want to apply before you do your stealings and reductions. I think it max accumulations twice. Oh, nope, it's just one. Oh, and it looks like the most recent one covers, so if you get a crit, and then the second one goes, oh, I didn't know that part. But as you can see, that reduces their wisdom, so then you'll be able to reduce more after that. And yeah, I mean, that pretty much covers everything I can tell you about Xelor. Generally for int playstyle, you're going to be wanting to try to set up conservation on targets that need healing. You're going to want to set up your dials so that you can heal yourself and or allies that need it as you're dealing damage with Dark Ray. Those are going to be your big things. If you can give your allies or yourself AP with Sandglass or Xelor's Fist as you move yourself and potentially allies or enemies around, this is going to be more for yourself. This is going to be more for others. But then always, if you do your symmetry right, this can also be for others too. But then one of the nice things is you'll be able to give you and your teammates AP. And actually, this AP, it doesn't do stimulated state anymore either, so you can make IOPS really strong still. But yeah, those are going to be your goals. You're going to be wanting to set things up so you can heal. You're going to be wanting to set things up so that you can increase AP and just deal damage as you do it.